Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Mark Steiner. Great to have you with us. Kim Jong Un's New Year Eve speech to his nation was also aimed at South Korea, which broadcast the speech live, as well as the United States and the rest of the world. He seemed clear that he would not unilaterally disarm his nuclear capability unless the U.S. did something similar. And he thought attempting to drive a deeper wedge between South Korea and the U.S. at a time when Trump wants South Korea to foot more of the bill for U.S. troops in that country, that the Koreas should be determining their own fate without foreign interference, not the rest of the world. He emphasized economic growth for North Korea, not nuclearization. In a pitched battle to gain support, he also was aiming this, I think, in many ways to China, Russia, and other nations, as well as to the U.S. and to the world. As this was going on, the highest-ranking North Korean to defect while Kim was ruler did so in Italy. And Trump's national security advisor kept thumping threats and ultimatums to North Korea during all this. So are Kim and Trump, as New York Times said, North Korea and the U.S., back to square one? What does that mean, despite Trump's tweet? And what does that mean that the American media and corporate media are saying that we're getting wrong or not really understanding? And what is the future of the two Koreas? We're about to have a conversation with Simone Chun, who has taught at Northeastern University in Boston and served as an associate in research at Harvard University's Korea Institute, is an active member of the Korea Peace Network, and on the steering committee of the Alliance of Scholars Concerned about Korea. And Simone, welcome. Good to have you with us here on The Real News.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. Happy New Year to you, too.
Thank you.
So let's talk. Let me start here in the United States about what the corporate media is doing. Let me play this short clip. This is a short clip from Mr. Ignatius, who is a columnist for the Washington Post. It was on television talking about what he saw as happening between Korea and the U.S., and we'll pick up from this piece about what the media is missing or getting right here about what's happening. Here's the clip.
They're both looking forward to another summit like the one that took place in Singapore in June. What's the agenda for that summit? The North Koreans have shown no sign whatsoever that they're prepared to denuclearize. Does the president know something that the North Koreans are planning to do? If not, I don't think there's going to be political support for another big showy summit that produces nothing.
So, Simone, I mean, take that as just one example of many things that's been said and written in our media. And what are we hearing here? What are we hearing you think that is missing in terms of some of the substance?
I think that first of all, we should look at briefly about, summarize again, recap of Chairman Kim Jong Un's speech. There he clearly, it was a very constructive and also positive message. There's no sort of bellicose threat against the United States. It was a sort of open-ended, again, invitation for the, looking forward to second Kim and Trump's summit. And also, as you pointed out, that the main message was about the economy, economic development, modernization of North Korea, and also very strong emphasis on the individual welfare of ordinary North Korean, citizens, workers and farmers who are under, suffering from this U.S. and UN-led economic sanctions against them. And what is really missing in American media is, in fact, the enormous progress that has been made in 2018, as you recall. And in fact, Chairman Kim Jong Un said that 2000 year and, was just a sort of a first step toward this long process toward the denuclearization, which he, again, reiterated his strong commitment to the denuclearization. But one thing that we have to, I guess there's a different definition. The North Korea, and also for the, many people think that the important thing is the denuclearization of the entire Korean peninsula, not just the denuclearization of North Korea, which the way most American corporate media and also some within the Trump administration think. What that means is that North Korea's unilateral disarming, North Korea's unilateral denuclearization, which North Korea is not really practical. There's no such thing as unilateral denuclearization. In order for the denuclearization to happen, you need to have full cooperation between North Korea and also other countries involved. So I think that's one thing that is really missing. And so I think we're really looking at when we're talking about Northeast Asia and Korean Peninsula, it is about denuclearization the entire Korean Peninsula, and also North Korea giving, the protecting, also respecting North Korea's sovereignty. That includes that the removing United States continuing threat, nuclear threat to the entire Korean Peninsula and also the region. So that's the important message to remember. And with regard to American corporate media, even I was in Washington, D.C. visiting U.S. senators and the members of Congress on the day of the Singapore summit. Within 24 hours, there were already many Democratic members. They were ready to just, sort of sabotage, destroy, not giving any credit whatsoever to the progress or even to effort that the minister making. So I think that we're already seeing that, in spite of very positive message and the progress that made in 2018, as you pointed out, that we already see the sort of very strong sabotage campaign from the corporate media, and also from even now is looking at the Democratic controlled members of Congress and some the more neocon hardliners. So which I think is very important to respond.
But I mean, there's a couple of things here. Let's play before I raise this question. This is a clip, obviously a translation of part of the address, a very short piece, part of the address that Chairman Kim gave to the nation, to South Korea, to the world.
Our parties, our governments and my resolve for complete denuclearization remain unchanged. We have proclaimed that we will no longer make nuclear weapons and will not use them or spread them. If the United States continues to break its promises and misjudges our patience by unilaterally demanding certain things and pushes ahead with sanctions and pressure against our republic, then we have to seek another way to protect our country's sovereignty and interest and establish peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula.
So in many ways, this speaks to what you were talking about earlier in this piece of the translation of Kim's address, on New Year's address. But the question is, I mean, it's a lot has been made by Trump that there have been this great advances, but there are others who would argue from left and right in Korea and here that really we're as far apart as we ever were in between the two nations in terms of what to do, specifically because of the denuclearization that clearly Kim and North Korea say they're not going to do as long as the U.S. has the possibility of attacking North Korea. So that seems, right, making that very clear. And so, I mean, the question, and then also the big push here, it seemed to me, was he was talking about the Koreas need to resolve their issues. There's already this tension between Korea and the U.S., South Korea and the U.S., over money and the troops. So, I mean, so what do you think that takes the future? I mean, this has been probably the greatest overture between North and South Korea in decades, since the war, maybe. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
In fact, I think, in my personal view, 2018 has been the most peaceful, time for Korea on the Korean Peninsula. And I know a lot of people don't like, I know there are a lot of people who have problems and don't like President Trump, but in his own way, because in a way, I guess, for promote his political interest, I think he did in a certain way that produced these outcomes. And with regard to North and South Korea, yes, absolutely right. It has been an incredible year. And Kim Jong Un's speech, if you look at it, he basically, the way he interpreted the Panmunjom Declaration was sort of a end of war, de facto non-aggression pact between two Koreas. So then North and South Korea will never consider each other as enemy, right? And that is that's the way he understood. And as you recall, the most important thing right now is what North Korea wants is, let's say, they want to build a trust with the United States. And then you remember, the number one in the Singapore summit was like a new relationship between the United States. So North Korea wants. Most importantly, the end hostility from the United States, and precisely the end of war declaration. That is, as you recall, the Korean War that has not ended, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's almost 7 decades of war, and as you recall, according to the Armistice Agreement in 1953, within 90 days of signing the armistice, they're supposed to have some kind of a permanent peace settlement. So we are right now, after almost 70 years, Korean War is still going on. So what North Korea wants is that some kind of assurance from the United States that the United States shall not ever, attack North Korea. And that means, again, specifically end of war, a declaration, possibly among three parties, that is South Korea, North Korea, and United States, and then followed by a four-party peace treaty. That means four-party means that includes China, right? China, as you remember, also was involved in Korean War. So that should be also, happen simultaneously with the process of denuclearization.
So that does seem a long way away, doesn't it? We're on the verge of anything like that at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So very quickly, if you were just for this year, since it's New Year's, very quickly here, and none of us are prescient, but where do you think this year is going to take us and the United States and Korea, and where do you think it's going to take this North and the South? What do you see happening, in short?
I think the second summit between President Trump and Kim Jong Un will be held either in January or most likely maybe later in February. And inter-Korean relationship will be, I think, progress, and there will be, I think, we'll see more unity among Korean people, and also toward the peace and prosperity in the Korean Peninsula. And I think at this point, what we really have to look at is the American media, and also especially now the Congress has to, support for the ending the Korean War, and also working towards the peace and prosperity, not only on the Korean Peninsula in Northeast Asia. And most importantly, finally, there's the United States really must lift the sanctions against, the 22 million North Koreans who are suffering from this brutal sanctions. And so, to summarize, I think that there will be a summit, the second summit, and also inter-Korean relationship will progress, regardless, no matter what happened outside of the Korean Peninsula. So that is my prediction, and I hope that we can support the Koreans yearning for peace and prosperity.
Well, Simone Chun, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you taking the time today. We're all looking forward to see what happens next, and watch this very closely. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
And I'm Mark Steiner here with the Real News Network. Thanks for being with us. Take care.